Our next story is about lung cancer. Heavy story for a Monday, I know, but trust me, this one has a happy ending. You already know that lung cancer is a public health crisis. It is the deadliest kind of cancer, the world's leading cause of cancer death. It kills about 1.8 million people every year. But this could all change very soon. A new global research is out. It studied the effects of a medicine over the span of a decade. And it says that this pill halves the risk of death from lung cancer. Now, a reduction of 50% is a big deal for any disease, but in the case of lung cancer, it is even more thrilling because this cancer is resistant to most therapies. And now it seems to have met its match. Our next report tells you more.
Cancer is devious. It's a disease in which cells in the body grow out of control. Cancer in the lungs is mainly caused by cigarette smoking. Lung cancer is the world's leading cause of cancer deaths. About 1.8 million people die each year because of it. Hungary, Serbia, and France have the highest rates of lung cancer cases. The US saw over 230,000 cases of lung cancer in 2018. What about India? During the same year, India saw about 68,000 cases, and this number is on the rise. Compared to the situation just a decade ago, here's a grim prediction. India is likely to witness a 7-fold rise in cases of lung cancer by 2025. So while the data is different for different countries, one thing is common for all. Lung cancer is a hidden public health emergency. And for decades now, scientists have tried to fight its statistics. They've developed aggressive therapies. They've tried to catch it early to increase the chances of patient survival. Now, they use artificial intelligence tools as well. Snake-like robots that can slither down humans' lungs. But despite arduous efforts, lung cancer continues to persist. So scientists develop something different, which has less to do with catching the disease and more with combating the repercussions. They created a wonder pill, if we may say so. It's a medicine called osimertinib, and it may have a complicated name, but it has one simple mission: to reduce the risk of death by lung cancer. Does it really work? Well, the result might surprise you. Yale University conducted research on the effects of the pill. They studied it for a decade, and now their report is out. It says that this pill a day keeps the risk of death away. Literally, this drug reduces the risk of death from lung cancer by 51%. It has to be taken daily, but it only works on a certain type of lung cancer. It's called a non-small cell cancer, which is the most common type. It affects about 10 to 25% of lung cancer patients in the US and Europe, and 30 to 40% in Asia. So effectively, this pill can reduce the risk of death by half. And expectedly, this news has created quite a stir. Doctors are calling it thrilling, not a word that they use often, because halving the risk of death in any disease is revolutionary. But in the case of lung cancer, it's even more so. Why? Because lung cancer is resistant to therapies, and for most patients in advanced stages, there is no cure. So this drug could save the lives of millions across the world. Patients in the UK, US, and some other countries are already able to access it. It has been administered to 700,000 people, and after this new study, doctors expect this pill to become the standard of care. A groundbreaking drug to save countless lives. It could help about a quarter of lung cancer patients worldwide each year. And more than anything, this medicine is a beacon of hope. It can greatly improve the odds of survival in lung cancer patients. So this wonder pill is nothing short of life-changing.
Speaking of high prices, let's turn our attention to the UK, the sick man of Europe. While inflation has been falling everywhere else, it remains stubbornly high in the UK. It is going down, but not fast enough. Of particular concern is food inflation. Food prices are about 20% higher than they were last year. This keeps aggravating their cost of living crisis, and their government still doesn't know how to address it. Last week, they were looking into putting price caps at supermarkets. Indians are familiar with the concept of a maximum retail price. But that isn't standard practice in the UK, and unsurprisingly, some companies are not willing to implement it. How will they price gouge if there's a cap? This is a standoff in the making between the government and supermarkets. And now a new idea has been floated, a universal basic income. Our next report has more.
What would you do if you were assured about $2,000 a month? Guaranteed that amount in your bank account. You may not have to worry about making ends meet. If that stress melted away, would you focus on your career more? Or would you stop working and take it easy? That's what the UK is trying to find out. A think tank called Autonomy is looking to conduct a pilot program, a pilot for universal basic income. It plans to test it out on 30 people in 2 areas in England. It wants to study how these people behave. The think tank hopes that the findings will pave the way to introduce universal basic income in the UK. Because, let's face it, the UK might need this. The country is suffering at the hands of inflation, more than almost anywhere else in Europe. Every country was hit by a cost of living crisis when the war in Ukraine erupted last year. But no one seems to be dealing with it worse than the UK. Inflation hit a 40-year high of 11.1% last October. It has climbed down now, but not enough. The latest figures show inflation at 8.7% in April. It was slightly more than expected, but that's not the biggest problem. It's what's driving inflation that's worrying policymakers in Rishi Sunak's government. Food inflation.
Whilst it is welcome that the headline rate of inflation has fallen, these numbers show there is absolutely no room for complacency in the battle against inflation. Food price inflation is still worryingly high. That's why we've had food producers farmers in supermarkets in to talk about what we can do to reduce the pressure there.
Food and non-alcoholic beverage prices rose by 19.1% year-on-year in April, almost 20%, for essentials like bread, milk and eggs. You can see why it has the British government worried. How long can people keep paying 20% extra for these basics? Or continue to deal with general inflation over 8%?
And it's currently running between 8.7 and 10%. What we've also had, because of the war in Ukraine, is vast increase in energy costs, and also food costs in the UK have bills have increased between 16 and 20% in the last 12 months. So everybody's feeling the strain, regardless of the level of income that they've got.
The Sunak administration is scrambling to bring food inflation in check. Their solution? Introduce price caps at supermarkets. The government floated this idea last week, and it immediately faced a backlash from major supermarket chains. Even though the price caps would be voluntary, the supermarket tycoons aren't having it. The British Retail Consortium put out a message. They said that the government should not focus on recreating 70s-style price controls. They should work on cutting red tape instead. Of course, the supermarkets would prefer the loosening of government regulations, but they're just the latest to rebel against the government. For months, the officials at 10 Downing Street have faced stiff resistance. Railway workers, nurses, paramedics, everyone has been taking to the streets. Everyone wants a pay rise to deal with the crippling cost of living. Sunak's government doesn't think this is feasible. They say it'll cost too much, empty the treasury. So it's been pushing back against striking workers. Downing Street even wants to enact a new law to undermine the right to strike. That's how much it's against increasing wages. In this scenario, it seems impossible that the government would agree to universal basic income, no matter what the findings are. But the think tank proposing the radical solution may not have to worry much. The study will be over around the next general election, and the way things stand at the moment, this government's inability to handle inflation may lead to their ouster.
The BBC chairman is rigorous, it's transparent, it's set out.
Have you heard of present bias? It's a term associated with human behavior. And what does it mean? It refers to difficulty in making lifestyle changes today to prevent a catastrophe in future. And we humans suffer from it. We are bad at addressing the risks of tomorrow because we often don't alter our behavior today. But why am I ambushing you with this reality check? Because I'm going to be talking about climate change, which is probably one of the biggest repercussions of our present bias. And why are we bringing this up tonight? Because today is World Environment Day. It is one of the biggest international days for the environment, and this tradition dates back to 1973. More than 150 countries are observing it. But what does it even mean? And can our actions, big or small, really make a difference? Our next report tells you. In New York, an art project made entirely of plastic waste. In India, a human chain along the banks of river Yamuna.
We are asking people to wake up and clean the Yamuna River.
In South Africa, food waste being recycled.
The world is in crisis. We all know about climate change, that our world is in trouble. We all have to do our bit.
3 different projects with different causes at heart, much like thousands of other campaigns in over 150 countries. But all of them talking about one thing, our environment. Because today is June 5th, World Environment Day. And this isn't just any other Monday. It is a global platform for environmental outreach. It calls for equal parts celebration and anger, all of it devoted towards the protection of this world. Each year, this day brings hope, collective action, and a much-awaited theme. And this year, the theme is Beat Plastic Pollution. It urges countries to look for solutions to plastic pollution, and that tracks. After all, the stakes couldn't be higher. We produce 430 million tons of plastic every year. Plastic waste pollution has doubled in the last decade. It is predicted to triple by 2060. Only 9% is recycled globally. Plastic pollution also has social and economic costs, which can go up to $600 billion every year. This is a crisis, and it's choking our world. Many of you may wonder, if this is such a big problem, why aren't our governments acting on it? Well, they're trying. The world could soon have a treaty to curb plastic pollution. It would be the first such legally binding global treaty. 170 countries have agreed to develop its first draft. While this sounds like too little too late, experts say it is a preliminary but crucial step. Because the world has deferred climate action for so long, and not just at the policy level, but also at a personal level. Our governments have certainly not done enough for climate change, but neither have we. Often what stops us is one common but vexing question. Can one person's actions really make a difference? If you have asked this before, you're not alone. The problem is so big, and our daily plastic use seems quite small. But personal action is inextricably linked to international cooperation. Without individual effort, there is no collective action either. If individuals hadn't come together, the Sunrise Movement wouldn't have camped out in the halls of US Congress, or India's iconic Chipko movement wouldn't have made waves. Climate action needs crusaders, a sea of them. So while we are scared for our future, our actions in the present must be loud. And no, that doesn't mean that you have to go on the streets holding banners demanding climate action. And if going cold turkey on plastic is too daunting, take the first step and minimize its use. Do other simple things, like stop wasting food and reduce your car use. Save fuel and save the planet as well. And it's not too late to make a difference. Of course, we also need ambitious government policies because we've already dangerously warmed the planet. Some parts of the world are burning, others are drowning. Some have off-season snowstorms and others are desertifying. The world is on fire, literally. So every day should be our own environment day. It may feel like a lost cause, But the future isn't set in stone. A different future remains possible, and it is up to us to decide which one plays out. And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. Starting with India, an under-construction bridge collapsed in the state of Bihar. This particular bridge collapsed for the second time in 14 months. In Indonesia, worshippers climbed to the top of an active volcano to perform a religious ceremony. And June is the Pride Month. In Thailand, members of the LGBTQ community held a pride parade in Bangkok. And finally, what makes the 5th of June significant? We're taking you back in history. On this day in 1967, a 6-day war began in West Asia. This war was fought between Israel and Arab states, the states of Egypt, Jordan and Syria. The brief but bloody battle was a result of years of diplomatic friction. The war ended with a UN-brokered ceasefire, but it changed the map of West Asia. Leaving you with that. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Email exchanges from inside the BBC, they talk about the risk of violating Indian laws. It's easier to rake up the freedom of speech debate, but does it give anyone a free pass to knowingly violate the law? America supports India because it needs India's support in return. And India is working with the US because it suits India's interests. This is how geopolitics works. Last night, he diffused a crisis with his defense minister. But today, Netanyahu was confronted with a new problem. His cabinet seems to have rebelled against him. The UK is looking at the Indian subcontinent to fill its coffers. That India seems to be negotiating from a position of power, like a partner and not a former colony.